Welcome to the first match preview of the new season. West Ham United versus Newcastle United. United v United. The only two that count, really, in the Premier League. Can't think of any others. I'm delighted to be joined this morning today by Emil Franchi, who works on the True Faith website and podcast. And I think you do other things there as well, Emil, don't you?
Man of many talents, basically, Graeme. That's what you've got today. Just that I do anything that gets thrown at me. And yeah, if any West Ham fans are at the game on Sunday, I will be outside the 9 bar doing some interviews. So feel free to come over and say hello.
There you go. Go and see Emil if you get the opportunity. I believe we do have an allocation of about 3,000. Not sure if they've all been sold yet. I think there might be a few left over. But anyway, I'm sure we can send a couple of our number over your way anyway for a quick chat before the game. Cracking on, Emil. It's should we talk about pre-season? I'm not sure we really want to do this as
I've spent a lot of time talking about pre-season. I'm happy to do a little bit more before we get our teeth into the actual stuff that matters. But
right. Look, let's begin with summer signings, and of course this isn't going to take an awful long time because West Ham have only made one. It's a backup goalkeeper, Alphonse Areoli, coming in from Paris Saint-Germain to put a bit of pressure on Lucas Fabianski, who's our main number one keeper. Now, Newcastle not made many moves in the transfer market. Some youngsters, Charlie Wiggett coming in from Chelsea, Remy Savage, Liverpool, Cameron Ferguson, who of course has a fairly famous father, coming in from Tranmere, I think it was. But not a lot else happening. I mean, I saw something. The Daily Mail's Craig Hope today said that Willock was close, edging closer. One of those that's always permanently edging closer. But what can you tell us really about the transfer policy and what's happened?
Well, I mean, you just have to look at Newcastle over however long now, 13, 15 years, something like that, in how we use brinkmanship to bring players in. Our policy is never simple. It's never just straightforward. I mean, take the Danny Ings at Aston Villa situation. And that just came out of nowhere, didn't it? I'd love for one day Newcastle to be able to produce something like that. But there is a slow process to every single thing that we do, even though we know that these players will help us, namely Willock. We know how good he was at the end of last season. And yeah, I mean, as it stands, that is all that is going on. There's always, in Steve Bruce's eyes, irons in many fires, but we don't tend to hoy them out of the place. So yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing thing. And I was surprised as anyone at the start of this week when Willock was apparently coming on a permanent deal. I was expecting a season-long loan. That tends to be how we do things. And look, sometimes I would say that Newcastle tend to get loan signings right. It gives us a chance to have a look at players. We've had the likes of Nabil Bentaleb, who didn't quite fit in to the system. We've also had people like Kennedy, who impressed, and we brought him back, and then it was a loan for a season, and no one's heard from him since. So hopefully Willock is going to break the mold on those two and continue his form. And if he does come on a permanent deal, I think it's a great place for him. The only thing is, of course, that these personal terms, we don't know what they have in them, but it's my understanding that there's probably a little bit of relegation clause in there. I imagine because he's a talented lad and we know how the Premier League works, he will want to go to a club that perhaps has a bit more ambition, like Arsenal used to, and probably wants to go back to a club of the caliber of the top six at some point. I can see him wanting to play Champions League someday. So I can't blame the lad. We are not an ambitious place. But if we can get him for a few seasons and that can keep us floating above the surface of the Championship for a while, then so be it. Because as you know, we've also got ongoing stuff with who might be our owners in the future, which is just exhausting. It's exhausting, and I'm tired.
Well, let's talk about that. It's really been an ongoing saga, as you said, for Newcastle for the last year or two. 3 A's really, isn't it? Amanda, arbitration, and the Arabs. But what's your view on the situation? Is it any closer to being resolved? Is that it really, as far as the Saudi interest goes? What's your take?
It's funny you mentioned AAA because the batteries have run out quite quickly on these things and they've been replaced and over and over and over. But excellent. Yeah, it's I mean, it was exciting in the first stage of lockdown. It came at a really strange time for football. And again, this kind of what I meant about the transfers. We've always said as Newcastle fans, if anything's going to happen, it'll happen like Man City. It'll happen, and the first we'll know is that it's actually done. And someone like Robinho will be holding our shirt in front of the club, or Messi, as fairy tales were said this week. But yeah, I mean, my take on it at first was great. This is exciting, richest club in the world. Bring it on. I am sick of my life. But as it's rolled on and rolled on and rolled on, and all of the stuff's come with the Premier League. Yes, okay. There's a lot of very dodgy dealings going on. There's also a very lot of dodgy dealings going on the Saudi side. I'm kind of at a bit of a impartial balance between the two now, where I kind of think, is it worth the hassle that we're going to get as a club because of the atrocious nature of the owners that we're going to be getting? On the other hand, am I literally ready for anything good to happen to the club for once, just so I can see us win something in my lifetime? Perhaps, but at the same time, also bearing in mind the sport washing that comes with it. I'm very aware of everything that comes with it. You see Man City fans saying that they are the name that gets slung around by the press for having the money that comes from the UAE and Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
We would be the next people to kick, and we saw that with the articles that were written. And it's easy for Newcastle fans to take offence, but really, as Newcastle fans, we've had an owner that we can't shift through any form of protest. I mean, yourselves, you've been on the pitch at West Ham to try and do that, and I guess in the last year or so they've listened, kind of. But again, we're kind of similar positions where we've got owners who we know are capable, but don't seem to wake up until it's too late. And
yeah.
at that
Well,
point,
I'll tell you what. Let's talk, Emil. Let's talk about the owners, because again, there are a number of similarities, I think, between Newcastle and West Ham. Always have been traditionally, but of course, this is another one. The fact that both of us had major issues with the people that run the club. Now, for those fans, those West Ham fans that don't really know what the issue is with Mike Ashley, talk us through it and explain what the major problem is there.
It's just an owner. I mean, currently at the moment, it's an owner who is massively checked out of the running of the club. As it stands, it's always been, it's kind of a very much a, right, just do what you need to do to stay up, that'll do. But from the off, Mike Ashley's come into the club, and this was a sale that was done by Freddie Shepherd, who did have best interests of the club at heart, but seemingly sold to someone who was never going to have that. And yeah, at the start, he was in the ground, he had the shirt on, he was drinking and necking pints in the stands and having a great old time. And everyone thought, great, billionaire owner, here we go. But then obviously it hit that real turning point when the second coming of Kevin Keegan occurred, and was binned fairly quickly. And, fair play to the guy. Everything that he said, there's certain people in the Newcastle folklore that you do not piss off and don't get on the nerves of, and those people are the likes of Alan Shearer, the likes of Kevin Keegan. Mike Ashley managed to do both of those things within the space of 1 year, as well as changing the name of the stadium, as well as plastering his name everywhere around it as free advertising. But we then went down. And yes, okay, we came back up under great people like Chris Hughton, who he then got rid of. Brought in the likes of Alan Pardew, again, and another similarity between us. And look, Pardew had some good moments, but he very much was then not allowed to build on that. We had the season in fifth where we went into Europe and we managed to sign one player and we struggled. And from there on, it's just been misery upon misery upon misery, including another relegation. We have no hope under this owner. Yes, okay, business model wise, we are continually seemingly in a good place financially, but then why not put that into the club, and let's build a real like let's just build. That's all we want. We look at the training ground, you look at the youth system. It's just a sheer neglect of a club. And yeah, okay, there's been people coming in, people will say, well, 20 million on Callum Wilson. What about all the other signings that you've spent over the years? What about the rubbish signings that Rafa brought in? The fact is, Benitez kind of sums it up, and I'm not going to go all misty-eyed on it, but in 3 years, he reignited the passion of a lot of fans that we saw in the 90s. And yeah, call us diluted all you like, but all we wanted from Benitez was a man who is going to talk up the club, and Ashley unfortunately could not cater to those ambitions of one man, and therefore he's gone. We're now left with a man who's going to say yes, and that's pretty much it. Copy and paste as the seasons go by.
It is it's eerie, the similarities between the two clubs. I mean, you talk about the transfer policy, the fact that the odd decent signing's been made. I mean, we had Pellegrini, of course, who quite a bit of money was given to and wasted. Sebastian Haller, Felipe Anderson, players like that. Slaven Bilic could have been, our equivalent of your Rafa Benitez, I guess. Someone who really galvanised the support and got everyone working together. And then, of course, he was sacked. But it's eerie how many similarities I think there are between the two clubs. And notwithstanding all this, the fact that going back traditionally, working class support, lots of Dockers in that, and it's yeah, it is kind of eerie anyway, I think. But
it's so similar.
One thing I've got to ask you though, Emil, is why do the Newcastle fans refer to Mike Ashley as a fat Cockney bastard when he comes from Walsall and has got homes in Miami and Spain?
It's just the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's mad, really. It's I guess it doesn't do much for the myth that we don't like Southerners managing or involved in the club. I mean, it's just there, and I think it became part of the Cockney Mafia. I think that is kind of like the thing that came with it. It was the Dennis Wise associations. The fact that he was at all ever near our club is preposterous, as is many of the other dodgy characters that pop up in that box. And I think that now it's become this Mike Ashley, Lee Charnley thing where we kind of look and go, there's something up. And we saw this week, I think, that Lee Charnley got a pay rise in a year. I mean, the other things as well. I mean, there's so much that the furloughing of staff, the people's lives that are affected by this bloke. It's not just the club. It's people who work in the city. It's people who work around the ground. 2 relegations for those people in the space of 10 years is not right, and that is bang out of order, really. For someone who has the money that they can put into the club, but would rather go and fix House of Fraser. And that's one for the Sunderland fans there. Saving the high street. It doesn't look like he's saving the high street to me, because I'm seeing him close them all the time. So, yeah, I think that the FCB thing has just come from the chant, really, and it's stuck, and it doesn't get under his skin, clearly. But yeah, you see him.
There's a lot of skin there to get under, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's just depressing thinking about it, thinking about the continuation of thing after thing. Every good thing is followed by a step back.
Yeah,
and
again, this is another thing I think, Emil. Sorry, but the similarities. We had that at West Ham last year. Obviously, finished 6th in the Premier League, qualifying for Europe, and we've not strengthened the team at all. So, but on that, what is the what's the general perception of the West Ham fan base from Newcastle in terms of the way that we look at our club and we look at our board? Is it does your fan base see the similarities? Do they think that we're better off with Sullivan and Gold than you are with Ashley? Because I can tell you one thing: there's a lot of people that will point to Mike Ashley and they'll say, well, he gave Newcastle a huge interest-free loan, whereas Sullivan and Gold, when they put money into our club, they were charging 7% interest on every penny they put in. So, yeah, what's the general view on those guys?
I think it swings and roundabouts. I mean, every situation is different in a way. If it was down to me, these owners would be nowhere near clubs. But I think fans in general, there's a one thing with Newcastle fans is that I don't think that we can ever be united on the decision of what we do about our club. I'm in close contact with like the NUST, the trust, and they've decided to start up the 1892 pledge, which has been started to basically safeguard if the club does fall down divisions in a similar vein to Sunderland or Leeds, where we can then step forward and take over like Portsmouth. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the West Ham fans, I think a lot of people would say, oh yeah, well, we want to get on the pitch next time. But then a lot of people would say, well, what has that actually achieved? Because what always happens with these protests, mass walkouts, empty seats, no matter what happens, they still hang around. And I mean, we even saw it with the Super League. Arsenal fans wanted to try and get rid of their owners because of the ESL stuff and everyone with the Glazers. they don't just disappear, which makes fans feel helpless, and therefore big things will happen. Big signings will come about. That always tends to happen when there's a little bit of unrest with Newcastle. So I guess with West Ham, maybe there was a reaction to the the stuff on the pitch that made them maybe do something to appease. But this is the thing: you look around every protest, not just West Ham, and it's really sad to think that we can't do anything about this. And really, it should be down to the Premier League. So I guess some of the stuff that Newcastle and Mike Ashley is doing at the moment to basically take the Premier League to the cleaners, if he wants to, maybe this will be the step. But I just don't know. It's we look at West Ham and we think, yeah, that was good, but what did that achieve? Are they happy now? They've had a great end of the season, so maybe some of those frustrations were quashed slightly with Lingard's progress and the fact that did you make it into, was it the Conference League that it was the
Europa League
Conference
finished
Europa,
sixth, yeah, so,
Europa League, yeah. So
group
getting into
stage.
that. But again, that we had that season. It almost feels like in the Premier League, there's like a carousel of teams: Everton, Newcastle, West Ham. Sometimes like maybe other teams that dare fly close to the sun, and then we get stung. And it's largely down to our owners who are like, oh well, we're in Europe, but we can't get here every year. Like, don't get used to this type thing. But why get into Europe? Get your extra TV money. Spend it on the players that can then look at Leicester, for example. That's always my prime example. I look at Leicester and I go, that's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I mean, I think they're the barometer that all those sort of mid-tier clubs that you referred to there are really looking at now. But of course, Leicester are only in the Europa League as well, as the same as West Ham this year. It swings and roundabouts to a degree, I guess. 12th last year, Newcastle. Which I guess, given the relegation fears that you genuinely harboured for much of the season, wasn't a bad finish in the end. What's the view on? We're going to talk about good stuff, by the way, in a minute. But let's just get on this out of the way. But Steve Bruce, really not favoured a lot by and again, when he came in, there was a lot of concern from the fan base. What's the view now? Has it changed at all?
I don't think so, because look, I was one of the few who said, look, he's come in at a difficult time, and it's a thankless task trying to take over from a world-class manager like Rafa Benitez.
Sure.
I think any fan could see that. And look, there was some who said, right, well, I didn't like Rafa's playing style, so let's see what Bruce can do. And look, I didn't dislike Rafa's playing style. I thought it got us the results given the circumstances. But Bruce coming down, thought, right, okay, let's see what happens. His track record isn't amazing, but we've got players and we've got ability that can hopefully do something. It quickly became apparent that wasn't the case. Look, his playing style isn't anything to behold. And I think the first season, the fact that we stayed up and had a glittering end to the season without fans was fine. But then last season, no fans in the ground has been his blessing in disguise, because no one's been allowed to vent their frustrations. We've all been stuck online, just shouting and shouting and shouting. And he takes note of that, apparently, with keyboard warriors and via his son, who randomly takes aim at journalists and fans alike. But yeah, my thing with Bruce is the way that he talks about the club. We could finish fifth and he'd say that we don't deserve to be there, or we shouldn't be in that position, because that's not what Newcastle do. Instant turn off, really, for any Newcastle fan. I don't care how we play. We could finish 16th. If you say that Newcastle shouldn't be in that position, then fine, do it. And that there's the contrast between our last manager and him. Benitez spoke about the club and said this club can be more than it is. Bruce is very much the sit back and go, yeah, well, look, us clubs like Newcastle, we can't compete with the big boys anymore. Doesn't matter. We don't want to be Chelsea. We don't want to be Man City. We don't want to be any of those. We want to be a club like, well, Leicester. We want to be a club like West Ham last season. We want to just do something that entertains, and ultimately that is all we ask for. And I think with Bruce, it's the denial. It's the denial of not changing things. And look, last season we were boosted by the addition of Graham Jones. I'm not saying that he's solely responsible for the changes. We've got good players like Alan Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson and Martin Dubravka who can be the superstars that pull us out of those positions. But with Bruce, it is ultimately that it's going into cup games against Brentford and losing 1-0 and saying that they were actually a very good side before that game and talking us down and saying we'll struggle. It's like, what are you on about? What are you saying this for? And look, we went and beat Leicester 4-2, and he goes on Talk Sport and starts saying that the fans' expectations are too high. It's like, mate, we liked you on Friday. It's taken you 3 days to then go and speak to Jim White and somehow talk yourself out of this. It honestly, it shocks me, the lack of self-awareness sometimes of being like, you're managing a club, you've got loads of fans, we were onside for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden, you couldn't just build on that. You have to let yourself go and chat yourself out of it. And that is it. Benitez said some inflammatory stuff about Ashley. We love it. And yes, of course, that's going to work. But Bruce just sits back and goes, well, Mike's a great guy. Stop it. Stop it.
Is there, I'm guessing there must be enormous frustration at seeing Rafa come back in to the Premier League and going to Everton.
Totally. And look, there'll be an element of told you so if they do succeed. But I think with that, it doesn't matter how Everton play. It's kind of what I just said there. If Everton go and win games 1-0 in the last minute, if they defend against the likes of Man City and get a cheeky 2-1 win, that's Benitez. That's his effect. That's his style, and that is the culture that he instills at the club. Bruce doesn't inspire anyone to go out there and win. I know I'm aware that the players like him, so I'll give him that. And I know that people like John Joe Shelby possibly think that he's getting a bit of an easier time than Benitez because, Benitez's style was cold, hands-off approach. If you're not going to work for me, then fine, you can go. And he did have his favourites. Whereas Bruce is very much an everyman. He also has players that he doesn't like. But yeah, with Benitez, it's going to be sad because the hype will be around that on Sky, BT, whatever. It's going to be the return to St. James's Park. Can he show Mike Ashley what he's missing? And it just builds it up. And we don't want that, really. Look, I think Newcastle fans will always appreciate what Rafa stood for. There's a brilliant fan-made film, We Are the Geordies, which tracked his championship season, and the fact that he went down with us to that level. I mean, Rafa Benitez standing in the away end at Bristol City and stuff like that. It's just, you just don't see that really, do you? And the fact that he stayed because of the fans on that final day, it said a lot, and that's a loyalty that we will never be able to repay back. I know that we're getting a little bit into the Keegan realms there, but those are the managers that do it. Keegan, Robson, Benitez, all got it. And Glenn Roeder as well, bless his heart. He as well got the club in a very short space of time. And the wonderful things that came out about him afterwards. It's about getting it, and Steve Bruce, I think, just doesn't quite get it.
Doesn't get it because look, we've talked about the managers that do get it. Let's talk about the players. Let's look at something a little bit more happy now, having done all that. Top 3 players you've seen in that famous black and white shirt in your lifetime.
In my lifetime, wow. Okay, well, of course, I'll have to start with number 3. Let's see. I think Demba Ba has to be in there. Again, another one between West Ham and Newcastle, but Demba Ba was just magnificent. I would like to maybe put a joint third of him and Cisse because they did have a split season, and in that season they did some wonderful things. Demba Ba led the line at the start. Cisse brought it home in the second half with some utterly incredible goals.
Was that the season he scored at Chelsea? That amazing
two goals in that game. Everyone forgets about the first because the second one was just so ludicrous, wasn't it? And even Drogba looked at it and went, "Wow, yeah." I think the Ba and Cisse relationship in that season that soon faded away, sadly.
All right, well, I'll give you that one as a joint third place. Then you can take that as a
Senegalese connection that we had. Yes, there. Number 2. Let me think. See, in my lifetime of players that I've seen doing wonderful things, it's very more recent. I unfortunately can't really remember the entertainers. So I was about to say Peter Beardsley, but I've not seen him play. However, I think the closest I got was Hatem Ben Arfa. He did some magical things as well in that season. And yeah, again, another one who could have been up there with the likes of Messi and maybe Ronaldo if his attitude had been right. That's the only thing that let him down, and it seems to be the case so often with Newcastle. But yeah, I would say Ben Arfa was excellent.
Which leads us nicely on to
Number
Who's your
one.
number one?
Look, of course, Shearer, obviously, but Shearer just scored goals for fun, and I think I don't want to include him in this because it's he's my number 0, if you like.
Right.
He can't be touched and never will be topped. But I think the top one, possibly someone like Norberto Solano. I just think that he was just a unique talent to the Premier League. We've not had many Peruvians in the Premier League. And I think that it was special having someone that no one knew anything about. I know Villa had him briefly, but the fact he came back to Newcastle, he was always that player that when he left Newcastle, I was gutted. And when he came back, even though we just signed Michael Owen the day before, he was the player I was most excited about seeing come back to Newcastle because I thought he's got something. And there's goals that he scored with the side of his foot. He could really do things. And it was a very understated player, I would say. And also the time he basically rang up Bobby Robson to play trumpet down the phone, just adds to the man, doesn't it?
Well, we of course know Nobby Solano well because he spent a season at our place.
Yes, of course,
at the tail end of his career. So yet more similarities.
It's just all in there,
but
isn't it?
yeah, what about the current team? I mean, who would you say, if you're David Moyes this week looking at the danger man really for Newcastle, who would you say that he's going to be looking out most for?
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be Saint-Maximin combining for Wilson, who loves scoring against the Hammers.
He does.
Saint-Maximin is your man who can, if he's up for it, I'll give him that, because West Ham could quite easily nullify anything that he does, and a lot of teams have managed to do that. And when teams cut him out of a game, he'll get his back up, and by that point you kind of think. But with fans in there, I think he's a real dangerous threat. He's a cocky player. He wants to take your players on. He's going to be running at the back four, or however you set up on Sunday. He wants to be the showboat, and again, much like Ben Arthur, Solano, Lauren Robert, it tends to be Frenchmen. Ginola, Robert, Saint-Maximin have all got this kind of off the ball. They probably are going to be like a pain in the arse, but on the ball can really change a game. So yeah, on his day, if he's running at your defenders, he can just make them look like mugs. And I think that is where Moyes will probably be looking. He'll probably be thinking about how can we contain this, because it happened in the home game just gone when we won 3-2. And I know that you managed to come back with the 10 men, but the effort that he put in for that first attempt that then got bundled in by, who was it again? Was it Ogbonna who put it into his own net? I can't remember now, but
it was so long ago, so many months ago.
Whoever scored for you put it into his own net as well.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but I'm going
to cheat and look that up because
look that up for me.
I've got it right here actually. We I mean it was Issa Diop scored our first
Diop,
goal.
yes, Diop, sorry, Diop, Diop scored and also put it in, and yeah, that was it. Saint-Maximin just nearly took it round Fabianski. He's unpredictable, and I think that is what sets us apart from some of the teams around the bottom at the moment. I'm looking around, I'm seeing the 3 teams that have come up are always going to struggle in the Premier League, I think, unless you've got like a Leeds mentality. Southampton are going to be down there again. I hate to count West Ham in that, but with the European season, we know what happens with that. So, you're probably looking around there again as well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Saint-Maximin is the one. If he can supply Wilson, then you're toast, basically.
All right. Okay. Good stuff. What's your... let's look at it now. I mean, it's the big season opener, the curtain raiser, as they call it, on Sunday. What's your prediction going to be? Do you see Newcastle? I mean, of course, last year, even though we had that fabulous season, I guess you could say that Newcastle stopped us from qualifying for the Champions League. Bearing in mind we ended up only 2 points outside the top 4. Yeah. Given that you did the double overs, do you see another win for the?
Doing the double over
on Sunday?
Doing a double over team that's qualified for Europe. I mean, that's something special, isn't it? That's our cup final, isn't it? I think that it's interesting because if we get Joe Willock in the next couple of days and get him registered before tomorrow, there's a high chance that he will play. And again, he's another one who will lap up the response from the crowd. He's another game winner who wants to win games. But with West Ham, obviously Lingard was just so instrumental for you, and without him, I think there were games when you struggled. So I take it he's nowhere near close to the signing at the moment, is he?
Well, from what we understand, David Moyes would like to bring him back. Manchester United yesterday, there was some kind of inference that they might perhaps be willing to let him go. So I think if it does happen, it's going to be one of those, that happens in the last sort of
so
not
before
days
Sunday,
of the window.
We'll take that.
But I mean, he was very influential. Scored 9 goals in 16 games, whatever it was. But still had a few where he didn't really sort of turn up. But without him, who would you look at in the West Ham team? And we said who is David Moyes going to be looking at and being most concerned about. What do you think Steve Bruce is going to be thinking?
I think Antonio, you can never doubt him, really. I mean, is he injured at the moment? Is he playing?
No, surprisingly, he's fit for a change.
He's fit. Okay, well, that's what I mean. He's the type of guy very similar to Wilson. He's a poacher. In the season prior to last, it was the 2-2 at St James's Park where he bundled one in. He's the type of player that our defenders can switch off and just let in. And that's not necessarily down to Antonio's ability. I would say it's more down to our defenders. Like some Lascelles can sometimes be not looking. Sometimes they're very slow to react and they back off, and then it goes in. But of course, I mean, Souček, his form is undeniable last season. How often do you get a player like that banging in so many goals? And he continued that form in the Euros as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I just think West Ham and Newcastle are very similar. Just West Ham have got a bit more organisation about them and a little bit more belief that they can win games. So I think my prediction for the weekend, I'm looking around maybe like a 2-2 because it's going to be cagey. It's going to be one of those games where both teams are up for it at the front because, like I say, Wilson, Saint-Maximin, you're always in the shout for a goal. But as well as that, we don't have Dubravka. So we're probably going to have young Freddie Woodman in goal. Carl Darlow's just recovering from a bout of COVID, which he's recovered from. Mark Gillespie doesn't seem to be in with a shout. So Freddie Woodman, who's had a good spell on loan in the Championship with Swansea, is looking like he's going to play. And by all accounts, a good little keeper. But I still think the big occasion sometimes can cause lapses of concentration for anyone at the back. So, yeah, I think solid 2-2, I think.
Okay. Well, do you know what? I think we'd all take that at the moment.
Yeah.
I think the thing you really don't want to do is lose that first game of the season, is it? No. I mean, we've got some reasonably tough games coming up: Leicester, Man United, Tottenham. I'm just looking at your fixture list. You're at Villa after West Ham and Burnley. So all 3 claret and blue clubs.
Get them out of the way early. That's what we like.
That is very interesting. But okay. Well, good stuff. So 2-2. Emil reckons. I think I'll probably go along with that. And as I say, I'll probably take that this weekend, given that, we haven't made any signings either.
It's a safe bet. Anyway, it's a safe bet.
It is. Emil Franchi from True Faith, thank you very much for joining us on our very first match preview of the season. And I should say, as someone who's got a very fond spot for Newcastle, good luck for the rest of the campaign. Yeah, good luck to yourselves as well. I think we are the leading the pack that chase the 6, and we should keep continuing that and never change. Nice one, Graeme. Cheers, buddy. Man. Take care. Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.